In the great halls of Asgard, where gods and goddesses once roamed, tales of mighty warriors and epic battles still echo through the ages. We often think of Odin, the all-seeing father of wisdom, or Thor, the thunderous god with his mighty hammer, as the heart of Norse mythology. These names, familiar and grand, linger in stories that have survived the test of time. Yet, behind the brilliant glow of the gods we know, there are others, quieter and forgotten, whose stories whisper like the wind through ancient forests, barely heard but deeply felt. There was a time when the Norse world brimmed with gods of all kinds, powerful, gentle, fierce, and kind. They governed the sun and the moon, guarded the seas, and kept watch over the humble hearths of mortal homes. But not all gods found their place in the grand sagas passed down through generations. Some slipped away into the shadows, their names slowly fading as the world moved on, and grander tales took center stage. The reasons vary. Perhaps their stories weren't dramatic enough, or maybe the people simply forgot as they sought gods of thunder and war to shield them in battle. Think of Var, the goddess who quietly oversaw oaths and agreements, the promises whispered between friends or lovers, and the solemn vows sworn before battle. Var wasn't there to wield a sword or ride into combat. She was there in the silences, in the gentle clasp of hands, and the unspoken bonds that hold lives together. In a world that often glorifies might, it's easy to overlook the quiet strength of keeping a promise. And so Var, like so many others, was left behind, her name a distant murmur, her power uncelebrated it. The sea's restless waves once answered to Ran, the enigmatic sea goddess. Sailors both feared and revered her, for she could be both a giver of life and a harbinger of death. She was the pull beneath the calm waters and the force behind the storms. But Ran's tales were not of glorious conquests or heroic deeds, they were of the sea's ever-changing moods, the quiet acceptance of fate, and the knowledge that the waters would take what they pleased. In time, her stories sank beneath the surface, lost to the depths, much like the sailors who fell under her watchful gaze. Then there was Sif, not just the wife of Thor, but a goddess in her own right. Known for her golden hair that symbolized the harvest, she embodied fertility and the cycle of life that sustained the Norse people. But Sif's stories were soft-spoken, woven with threads of everyday life, planting, nurturing, and reaping. In the grand tapestry of gods, her threads were overshadowed by tales of thunder and war, her significance overshadowed by those whose tales thundered louder. Yet, the field she blessed continued to bloom, unnoticed but essential, much like her quiet strength. For Seti, the god of justice, whose halls were said to shine like silver and gold, sat in quiet judgment. His was the wisdom that brought peace to disputes, the calming voice in a sea of anger. But in a world enamored with the clashing of swords and the roars of battle, the subtle art of reconciliation was often left unnoticed. For Seti's name faded, not because his role was unimportant, but because it was not loud. It didn't echo with the same force as the call to war, but it was the steady hand that guided the Norse through the complexities of honor and fairness. There's something profoundly sad about the fading of these gods. It's not just the loss of their stories, but the loss of the values they represented, oaths kept, justice served, the quiet pull of the sea, and the golden promise of a good harvest. These gods were the backbone of a people's belief, the silent guardians of the small moments that made up their lives. In forgetting them, a part of the Norse soul dimmed, like a candle snuffed out in the wind. Yet, these stories, though forgotten, still linger. They are the whispered prayers of old, the quiet moments of reflection, the understanding that not all battles are fought with swords, and not all victories are loud. They are reminders that in every grand tale, there are smaller stories woven beneath, stories of the gods who watched over the everyday, the quiet, the unseen. The world moved on, embracing gods whose names carried the weight of thunder and lightning, whose tales could stir the hearts of warriors. But in doing so, it left behind those gods who watched over the softer things, the gods whose presence was felt in the quiet moments between breaths. The importance of preserving these lesser-known stories lies not just in remembering the gods themselves, but in understanding the full breadth of Norse belief. It's about recognizing that strength comes in many forms, that power isn't always loud, and that sometimes, the gods who sit in silence have the most to teach us. As we think of these forgotten deities, there's a feeling, almost like a gentle tug at the heart. It's the sense of something lost and the quiet yearning to remember. It's knowing that in the grand halls of Asgard, where the stories of Odin, Thor, and Loki ring loud and clear, there are still quieter corners, where the whispers of Var, Ran, Sif, and Forseti can still be heard if one listens closely enough. They are the echoes of a time when every promise mattered, when justice was sought in every dispute, and when every seed planted was a prayer to the gods. They remind us that in the vast expanse of myth, every story, no matter how small, has a place. In the quiet corners of Norse mythology, where the grand tales of gods and giants often took center stage, there lived a goddess who moved through the subtle spaces between words and actions. Var, the keeper of oaths, was not one to wield a sword or call down the fury of storms. Instead, her power lay in the sacredness of promises, the unspoken agreements that bound people together. In a world where honor was everything, Var stood as the silent witness, holding each vow like a precious thread in the grand tapestry of fate. Var's presence was not announced with fanfare or fury. She was there in the hush of the night when two warriors swore loyalty over a crackling fire. She was in the tearful pledges of lovers and the whispered assurances between friends. Every promise made was like a spark of life to her, a flicker of hope in the often tumultuous lives of mortals. Var watched over these moments, her essence woven into every word that carried the weight of truth. To break an oath in her eyes was to break the very fabric of one's soul. Her influence was felt in every corner of Norse society. In those days, a promise was not just a fleeting utterance, it was a binding force, as unbreakable as the strongest chain. When a warrior vowed to protect his kinsmen or when a sailor swore to return home to his family, Var's presence was there, listening, her unseen eyes filled with quiet intensity. It was said that she could sense even the faintest hesitation or deceit. Those who dared to break their word would feel her gaze, a gentle but unyielding reminder of the weight they had chosen to bear. The Norse people held their promises sacred, knowing that each one carried the blessing and the curse of Var. She was not a goddess who struck down with anger or fury, her power was more haunting, more personal. The breaking of an oath brought misfortune, not as a punishment, but as a natural consequence of the balance Var upheld. The crops would fail, the ship would be lost at sea, or the warrior would find his strength faltering in battle. It was as if the very world mourned the broken promise, reflecting the inner turmoil of the one who had failed to honor their word. Var's worship was woven into the everyday lives of the Norse. Though there were no grand temples or towering statues in her honor, she was honored in quiet, intimate ways. Small offerings were left at hearthsides, tokens of gratitude for her vigilance. A piece of bread, a sip of mead, or a simple carving left on a windowsill would suffice. These were not grand gestures, but heartfelt ones, reminders of the sacredness of their oaths. In Var's name, they bound themselves not with chains, but with the strength of their own promises. Rituals dedicated to Var were moments of solemn reflection. Before a significant vow was made, people would take a moment to pause, to breathe in the weight of their words. Hands were clasped, eyes met, and in those moments, the presence of Var was felt most keenly. It was said that she could be seen in the flicker of a candle's flame or heard in the rustling of leaves, a gentle reminder of her ever-watchful eye. To speak an oath in Var's name was to invite her into one's heart, to feel the gravity of her power in every beat. Weddings, too, bore her touch. As couples stood before their families, they did more than exchange vows, they called upon Var to witness their union. They promised not just to love, but to be truthful, to honor the commitments they made to one another. It was said that Var would bless these unions with a quiet strength, her presence a soothing balm that would help mend the inevitable fractures of life. In the Norse belief, a marriage blessed by Var was not one free of strife, but one built on a foundation that could weather any storm. In Norse society, even the smallest agreements were touched by Var's influence. Traders and merchants invoked her name to ensure fairness in their dealings. Before a deal was struck, a simple nod to Var was all it took to seal the agreement in the eyes of the gods. It wasn't just about the exchange of goods, it was about maintaining trust, about knowing that one's word was as valuable as the gold in their hands. Var's presence ensured that every transaction was more than a mere business deal, it was a bond of faith between individuals. Parents, too, spoke of Var when teaching their children about honesty and the importance of keeping promises. Stories of Var were whispered at bedtime, not as warnings, but as gentle guides. They told of how she would look after those who stayed true to their word, how she would weave their promises into the fabric of the world, strengthening the bonds between people. Children learned that to honor Var was to honor themselves, to live with integrity and courage, even when no one else was watching. Var's story may not be filled with the thunderous battles and fiery confrontations of other gods, but her power was no less profound. She was the heartbeat of trust, the quiet whisper that reminded the Norse of their deeper connections to one another. In every promise, there was a piece of Var, binding hearts and fates with a gentle but unbreakable thread. Her legacy, though often overshadowed by the more dramatic tales of the gods, was one of the most essential, a legacy of honor, trust, and the simple, unshakable power of keeping one's word. The goddess of oaths, though often forgotten, remains a reminder of the strength found in the simplest of acts. She stands as a quiet guardian of every vow, every whispered promise, and every heartfelt commitment. In a world where words can be as fleeting as the wind, Var is the keeper of those moments that truly matter, the unspoken guardian of the promises that shape our lives. The sea is a vast, restless force, forever moving, forever changing, and in its depths lies a mystery as old as time itself. For the Norse, the sea was both a provider and a thief, a highway to distant lands and a grave for those unlucky enough to cross its path. And at every crashing wave, and every sudden storm, they felt the presence of Ran, the enigmatic sea goddess. She was not like the other gods who lived in the lofty halls of Asgard. Ran was the sea itself, unpredictable, beautiful, and terrifying. Ran's domain was the endless ocean, and she ruled it with a cold, quiet power. She was said to live beneath the waves in a grand hall made of coral and bones, where the drowned sailors she claimed would find themselves for eternity. Ran's net was her tool, a web of silver threads she cast into the waters to snare those who dared to challenge her realm. To the sailors who ventured out into the wild, open sea, her net was a constant threat, an invisible force lurking beneath the surface, waiting to pull them down into the cold, dark depths. The relationship between Ran and the seafarers was a complicated dance of fear and respect. On calm days, when the sea was gentle and the sun kissed the waves, sailors would whisper prayers to her, offering small tokens, coins, jewelry, or bits of food tossed overboard, to appease her fickle nature. They knew that Ran could be kind, that she could cradle their ships gently on her surface and guide them safely to their destination. But they also knew that her kindness was not to be trusted, that the sea could turn in an instant, and Ran's mood could shift like the tides. There were countless tales of Ran's darker side, stories that sent shivers down the spines of those who told them. She was not a goddess who showed mercy easily. Many believed that when a sailor fell into her grasp, it was because she desired them, that she pulled them down into her underwater hall to keep them for herself. These were not peaceful deaths. The sea was unforgiving, and those taken by Ran knew only the panic of breath running out, the cold water filling their lungs, and the weight of her net dragging them down. One such story speaks of a sailor named Eirik, who was known for his arrogance. He laughed in the face of the sea's dangers, boasting that no storm could sink his ship. But Ran had heard his boasts, and she watched as his ship sailed into her waters. For days, the sea was calm, and Eirik grew bolder, taunting the sea with every wave that passed beneath his ship. But then, one fateful night, the winds changed. The sky darkened, and the sea began to swell. Eirik's laughter faded as he realized the grave mistake he had made. The storm hit with a force that shook the ship to its core, and amidst the chaos, Ran's net found him. It wrapped around his legs, pulling him down into the icy depths. His crew watched in horror, unable to save him, knowing that he was lost to Ran's cold embrace forever. Ran was not a goddess to be trifled with, and her legends served as stark reminders of the sea's power. She was not evil, nor was she kind, she simply was. The sea gave life, but it also took it away, and Ran embodied that duality perfectly. To many, she was the personification of fate itself, a force that could not be reasoned with or bargained away. The sea's bounty was hers to give, but its dangers were hers to command as well. Those who respected her found safe passage, but those who forgot her power often found themselves at the bottom of the ocean, tangled in her net. There were stories of those who had tried to cheat Ran, to escape her grasp and return to the surface. One such tale is that of Thorleif, a skilled fisherman who was known for his luck at sea. He had a family waiting for him on shore, and every time he sailed out, he promised them he would return. But one day, a sudden storm rolled in, and his boat was capsized by a massive wave. As he struggled against the pull of the water, he felt Ran's net close around him. But Thorleif was strong, and his will to return to his family was stronger still. He fought against the net with every ounce of strength he had, clawing his way back to the surface, where he was eventually rescued by another passing ship. But Thorleif's story did not have a happy ending. Though he had escaped the sea that day, Ran did not forget. For years, he was haunted by nightmares of drowning, and he could no longer look at the ocean without feeling her cold gaze upon him. He never sailed again, and though he lived to an old age, he often spoke of the debt he owed to Ran, a debt he knew he would one day have to pay. When he passed away, his family threw a silver coin into the sea, a final offering to the goddess who had spared him once but would not be cheated forever. To the Norse, Ran was more than just a goddess, she was the embodiment of the sea's mysteries and dangers. She was the chill in the air before a storm, the stillness before a wave crashed, the unspoken fear in every sailor's heart. Her stories were woven into the fabric of every sea voyage, a reminder that the ocean's depths were not to be taken lightly. Even the bravest of sailors knew better than to test her patience, for Ran was always watching, always waiting, her net ready to pull them into her world beneath the waves. Her myths and legends lingered on the lips of those who lived by the sea, passed down through generations as both warnings and acknowledgments of the sea's unpredictable nature. They told of the treasures hidden in her underwater hall, of the drowned souls she kept as her own, and of the storms she would unleash without warning. Ran's tales were not just about the sea's beauty, but its unforgiving depths, its power to give life and take it in the same breath. To honor Ran was to respect the sea, to acknowledge its gifts, and to never forget its dangers. Sif was more than just the golden-haired wife of Thor, more than just a supporting character in the grand tales of thunder and battles. She was a goddess whose presence was felt in every field of golden wheat swaying under the summer sun, and every burst of new life springing from the soil. Her beauty was legendary, yes, but her power ran far deeper than her radiant hair, which shimmered like the brightest sun. Sif was a symbol of life itself, a quiet but steadfast force that nourished the earth and all who depended on it. They say her hair was made of gold, spun by the dwarves when Loki's mischief left her shorn and humiliated. But it was more than just a stunning replacement, it was a symbol of fertility, of the cycles of nature that sustain all life. Sif's hair wasn't just beautiful, it was sacred. Every strand represented the fields of grain that fed the people, the harvests that promised survival through the long, cold winters. It was said that when Sif's hair flowed freely, the crops would flourish, bending under the weight of a bountiful yield. But when her hair was taken, the fields would lie barren, stripped of their life, just as she had been stripped of her dignity. There is a story of how Sif's influence stretched far beyond the fields. It wasn't just the crops that she blessed, but also the hearts and homes of those who revered her. One day, in a small village nestled between the mountains, the earth began to grow cold. No crops would grow, and the animals, too, began to weaken. The people were afraid, for they knew that without the harvest, they would not survive the winter. They prayed to Thor for storms to bring rain, to Odin for wisdom, to Freyr for warmth. But nothing changed. The days grew shorter, the nights colder, and still, the fields were empty. In their desperation, the villagers turned to Sif, whose quiet strength they had always known but never fully understood. They gathered together, bringing what little they had left, a handful of seeds, a wilted flower, a lock of golden hair from a beloved child. They laid their offerings on the earth, and with tears in their eyes, they called out to Sif, not for thunder or war, but for life. For hope. For a chance to see their children grow in a world that was lush and green, not gray and lifeless. The earth seemed to shudder, and from that moment, warmth began to seep back into the soil. The seeds they had planted took root, sprouting into vibrant, green shoots that promised the return of the harvest. The villagers knew then that it was Sif who had answered, not with fanfare or fury, but with the gentle touch of a goddess who understood the true value of life. She was more than Thor's wife, she was the giver of life itself, the silent guardian of every seed sown and every grain harvested. Sif's influence extended even further, touching the lives of women, especially those who struggled with bringing life into the world. In the quiet moments of prayer, women would call on Sif, not for strength in battle, but for strength in the trials of birth and motherhood. She was their comfort, their guide, offering a gentle hand when the pain was too much or the fear too overwhelming. In those tender moments, they felt her presence, a reminder that even in the toughest of times, there was hope, there was growth, there was life. There are lesser-known tales that tell of Sif's own trials, moments when her quiet strength was tested. One such story speaks of a time when Thor was far from home, called away by the endless battles that defined his existence. In his absence, enemies of Asgard saw an opportunity, believing that without her mighty husband, Sif would be vulnerable. But they underestimated her, seeing only the beauty of her hair and not the resolve that lay within. Sif stood firm, her eyes fierce and her heart unyielding. She called upon the power of the earth itself, raising walls of stone and barriers of thorns to protect her home and her people. Those who sought to harm her soon learned that beneath her gentle exterior lay a warrior spirit, one that could not be broken or bent. The symbolism of Sif's hair and her connection to the earth runs through every thread of her stories. Her golden locks were not just a source of vanity but a living tapestry of life and renewal. They represented the endless cycle of growth, the promise that even after the harshest winter, the earth would bloom again. Every time she let her hair down, she was letting the world know that it was time to grow, to heal, to move forward. Sif's power was subtle but profound, felt not in the clash of swords or the roar of thunder, but in the quiet moments of dawn when the first light touches the fields, in the whisper of the wind that carries the scent of blooming flowers, and the first cry of a newborn that signals the start of something beautiful. She was the force that kept the world moving, the unspoken promise that no matter how dark the days might become, life would always find a way. To many, Sif's stories were a reminder of the simple, yet powerful truth that life's greatest gifts often come from the quietest places. She was not the loudest or the fiercest of the gods, but her presence was felt in every corner of the earth. Her legacy was one of growth, of resilience, of the beauty that can only be found in nurturing the world around us. For those who knew her, Sif was more than just a goddess with golden hair. She was a beacon of hope, a symbol of life's enduring spirit, and a quiet reminder that sometimes the most powerful forces are the ones that work gently, patiently, in the background, ensuring that life continues to flourish. There was a light that shined brighter than any other in Asgard, and it was Balder, the beloved god whose beauty and kindness touched every heart. His presence brought warmth to even the coldest of days, and his laughter was like the gentle ringing of bells in the morning. Balder wasn't just loved, he was cherished, a beacon of hope in a world where darkness often loomed. He was the son of Odin and Frigg, and his light was said to be so pure that nothing in existence could harm him. But even the brightest lights can be extinguished, and Balder's story is a heartbreaking reminder of how fragile that light can be. It started with a dream, a dark, foreboding vision that wrapped itself around Balder like a shroud. Night after night, he saw his own death, felt the cold grip of shadows pulling him away from everything he knew. His mother, Frigg, was consumed with fear. She couldn't bear the thought of losing her son, the heart of Asgard, whose very presence brought joy and peace. So she traveled the 9 realms, pleading with every creature, every element, to swear an oath that they would never harm Balder. Fire, water, iron, and stone, all of them promised. Even the animals, the trees, and the stones of the earth pledged to keep him safe. And so, with every assurance, it seemed Balder was invincible, protected by the very fabric of the world. In Asgard, the gods rejoiced in Balder's newfound safety. They made a game of it, throwing stones, spears, and anything they could find at him, laughing as each weapon fell harmlessly away. Balder stood in the center, smiling, radiant, untouched by any force. He was untouchable, they thought, a god who would live forever. But there was one small, seemingly insignificant thing that Frigg had overlooked: mistletoe, a delicate plant so harmless, so gentle, that she had not thought to ask it for its oath. It was this small oversight that would seal Baldur's fate. Loki, ever the trickster, watched with a keen eye. He saw the joy in Baldur's face, the love that every god and goddess felt for him, and a bitter seed of jealousy took root in his heart. It wasn't enough for Loki to simply stand by. He had to act, to bring about the one thing no one else dared even think of. He plucked a sprig of mistletoe, and with his silver tongue, he approached Baldur's blind brother, Hodr. "Why don't you join the fun?" he whispered to Hodr, guiding his hand, placing the sprig in his grasp. Hodr, unaware of the danger, threw the mistletoe, just as everyone else had thrown their harmless weapons. There was no laughter when Baldur fell. No joy in watching the beloved god stumble and collapse. A hush fell over Asgard, a silence so profound it seemed the world itself held its breath. Baldur's light flickered, then faded, as the mistletoe pierced his heart. The gods rushed to him, but it was too late. His eyes closed, his light extinguished, and the sound of his last breath echoed like a whisper through the halls of Asgard. The unthinkable had happened. Baldur, the beloved, was gone, and no magic, no plea, could bring him back. The impact of Baldur's death was felt in every corner of the 9 realms. It was not just the loss of a son, a brother, a friend, it was the loss of innocence, of hope. It was the death of the idea that some things could be protected from fate. Frigg's cries could be heard from the highest peaks of Asgard to the deepest valleys, a mother's grief that shattered the hearts of even the most stoic gods. Odin, who had seen so much, who knew the weight of every prophecy, was powerless in the face of his son's death. The light of Asgard had been snuffed out, and with it, a shadow fell over the realm that would never truly lift. Baldur's death was not just a tragedy, it was a turning point. It signified the coming of Ragnarok, the end of all things, a prophecy that had hung over the gods like a storm cloud. For Baldur was not just another god, he was the best of them, the purest, the most loved. His death was a sign that even the most precious things were not immune to the cruel hand of fate. It was said that his passing opened the gates for the doom that would follow, a reminder that nothing, not even the gods themselves, could escape the threads woven by the Norns. But in the shadow of his death, Baldur's legacy was often forgotten. Overshadowed by the might of Odin, the wrath of Thor, the cunning of Loki, Baldur's story slipped into the background. He was remembered, yes, but not as he should have been. His tale was not just one of loss, but of the deep, enduring love that the gods had for him, a love that even death could not erase. Baldur's story was a testament to the Norse understanding of fate, not as something to be feared, but as something that simply was. It was not cruel or kind, it was indifferent, a force that moved through the world with no regard for the joys or sorrows it left in its wake. There is a poignancy in Baldur's story, a reminder of the fleeting nature of all things. His light was bright, but it was brief, a burst of warmth in a world that could be so cold. His death was a wound that never fully healed, a reminder that even in a realm of gods, nothing was forever. Baldur's tale is one of love, of loss, of the inevitability of fate, and the way it touches everyone, even those who seem untouchable. In the quiet moments, when the gods sit in their halls, they remember Baldur not as the god who fell, but as the god who loved, who laughed, who brought light into their lives. He is the one they speak of in hushed tones, the one they wish could have stayed. And though his name may not be shouted from the mountaintops or carved into the walls of great halls, it lingers in the hearts of those who knew him. Baldur, the beloved, the one who shined so brightly, even as the shadows closed in. In the heart of Asgard, where the gods would often clash with thunderous might and fierce pride, there stood a hall unlike any other. Glitnir, it was called, a radiant place of gleaming silver and gold that shone like the morning sun breaking through the darkest storm. Its walls sparkled as if the stars themselves had come down to rest upon them, casting a warm, soothing glow over all who entered. This was not a hall of feasting or battle, it was a sanctuary, a place where the quarrels of gods and men would find their peace. And at the center of it all sat Forseti, the god of justice and reconciliation, whose voice was calm as a still lake and whose words were as clear as crystal. Forseti was not the loudest nor the most powerful among the gods, but there was something about him that commanded respect and drew even the fiercest hearts to him. He was the son of Balder, the beloved, and like his father, he radiated a gentle strength that was both comforting and unyielding. Forseti's gift was not in wielding weapons or casting spells, but in the quiet power of his wisdom. He listened, truly listened, in a way that made others feel seen, their fears, their anger, laid bare and understood. His role was not to judge with wrath or vengeance, but to guide, to heal, to bring together what had been torn apart. When disputes arose, and they often did in a realm full of fiery gods, it was to Forseti that they turned. He would sit in his shining hall, Glitnir, and listen to the grievances brought before him. There were no shouts, no threats, no weapons allowed. Only words, honest and bare. The gods would come with their tempers flaring, their pride wounded, but Forseti would sit quietly, his calm presence washing over them like a gentle tide. He did not rush to speak, did not rush to judge. Instead, he let the silence work its magic, allowing anger to cool and minds to clear. In his hall, the air was filled with the soft hum of harmony, a delicate balance that Forseti maintained with care. The glow of Glitnir seemed to reflect his own inner peace, a peace that was contagious, seeping into the hearts of those who came seeking resolution. For Forseti's goal was not to win or to prove, but to understand. He would listen to each side, letting their words hang in the air, and then, with a quiet grace, he would begin to speak. His voice was gentle, yet firm, guiding those before him to see beyond their own anger, to look into the eyes of the one they quarreled with and see not an enemy, but a soul just as troubled, just as lost. Forseti's wisdom extended far beyond the realm of the gods. His influence seeped into the world of men, where justice was often hard to come by. In ancient Norse society, disputes were many, and the law was often a tangled web of blood feuds and personal vendettas. It was said that those who wished for true justice would call upon Forseti, hoping that his spirit would guide them. They would carve his symbols, invoking his name in the hopes that fairness and balance would prevail. Forseti's presence was felt in every courtroom, every assembly where men sought to make peace. His name became synonymous with fairness, with the idea that even the most bitter of enemies could find common ground. Glitnir was more than just a hall, it was a beacon of hope. A symbol that, in a world often ruled by might and power, there was still a place for understanding and compassion. Its shining walls were like a promise, a reminder that no matter how dark things seemed, there was always a light to be found in the willingness to listen, to reconcile. Those who entered Glitnir left their weapons at the door, not just their physical arms, but the weapons of their hearts, the grudges, the anger, the pride that so often clouded their vision. Forseti's legacy was not one of grand battles or epic tales of heroism, but of quiet victories. The kind that happened not with a roar, but with a sigh of relief, a handshake, a tear wiped away. His power was in the way he could turn a storm into a gentle rain, the way he could guide even the most stubborn hearts toward peace. He was a reminder that true strength was not in force, but in the courage to make peace, to admit fault, to forgive. The gods may have been mighty, but even they knew the value of Forseti's gift. For what was power without peace? What was might without justice? In a world where the clashing of swords and the roar of battle were all too common, Forseti's quiet wisdom was a balm, a soothing presence that brought balance to the chaos. He was the whisper in the storm, the gentle nudge that turned wrath into understanding. And so, Forseti's name lived on, not in the loud chants of warriors or the grand sagas of heroes, but in the quiet moments. In the peaceful resolutions, in the mended friendships, in the calm after the storm. He was the god who reminded them all that sometimes the greatest battles were the ones fought within, and the most powerful victories were the ones that ended not with a sword raised high, but with a heart laid bare. In the vast halls of Asgard, amidst the roaring battles and mighty feasts, there existed a gentler presence, often overlooked but always felt. Air, the goddess of healing, moved like a whisper through the lives of those who knew pain and sought solace. While the warriors sang of glory and the gods basked in their powers, Air's touch was quiet and tender, like a mother's soothing hand on a fevered brow. She was the breath of relief in a world that was all too often consumed by strife and suffering, and her gift was one of hope and renewal. Air's presence was most profound in the quiet moments, in the stillness that followed the chaos of battle. When the dust settled and the cries of the wounded filled the air, it was Air who was called upon, the silent guardian of those on the brink. She didn't wield a sword or command the storms, but her power was no less mighty. In her hands, she carried the secrets of life itself, the ancient knowledge of herbs and remedies passed down through the ages. Air's skill was not just in the mixing of potions or the binding of wounds, it was in the way she could see the suffering of another and offer the gentle promise of healing. The people who worshipped her knew that she was more than a goddess, she was a symbol of the enduring human spirit, the will to keep going even when the odds seemed insurmountable. In Norse villages, healers who tended to the sick would often whisper Air's name as they worked, hoping to channel her divine touch. They would gather herbs under the full moon, believing that Air's guidance was strongest in the night when the world was quiet and the veil between the realms felt thin. From the wild mountains to the deep forests, the land was filled with her gifts, the healing plants and roots that grew in abundance, each one carrying a bit of Air's magic. Air's influence could be seen in every healer's hand, every poultice and salve that eased a fever or soothed a burn. The ancient Norse believed that it was Air who taught them the art of healing, who whispered the secrets of the earth to those willing to listen. She was there in the bitter taste of a life-saving herb, in the cool touch of a healing balm, in the gentle breath of a healer's prayer. To call upon Air was to ask not just for healing of the body, but for comfort of the soul, for the strength to endure whatever hardships lay ahead. One of the most poignant tales of Air's compassion speaks of her aiding a fallen warrior, not with words of valor, but with the quiet grace of her healing hands. The warrior had been gravely injured, his body broken and his spirit nearly extinguished. As he lay on the battlefield, gasping for breath, Air appeared beside him. She didn't speak of the glory of Valhalla or the honor of a warrior's death. Instead, she knelt beside him, her hands moving gently over his wounds. Her touch was like a cool breeze on a sweltering day, calming the fire of his pain. The warrior, who had resigned himself to the end, felt a flicker of hope reignite within him. Air's presence was like a soothing lullaby, urging him to hold on just a little longer. The myths often depict Air as one of the handmaidens of Frigg, assisting in the care of the gods, but her role extended far beyond Asgard. She was seen as a bridge between the divine and the mortal, a compassionate figure who did not discriminate between gods and men in her willingness to help. In every tale, she embodied the delicate balance between life and death, showing that even in a world ruled by mighty gods, there was a place for tenderness and care. Air reminded them all that healing was not just about curing wounds, but about nurturing the spirit, mending the unseen cracks that ran deeper than flesh. Air's compassion was not without its own quiet power. It took strength to stand against the pain of the world, to face it head-on and refuse to let it harden the heart. Air's heart remained open, her empathy untouched by the cruelty around her. She taught that true healing required more than just knowledge, it needed patience, kindness, and the courage to keep going when others would turn away. Those who sought her wisdom were taught to see beyond the surface, to look at the person behind the pain and offer not just a cure, but understanding. The ancient healers who followed her path became legends in their own right, revered not just for their skill but for their unwavering commitment to their craft. They learned to read the language of the body, to listen to the stories told by each ache and fever. And in every leaf, every root they used, they felt Air's presence, guiding their hands. They knew that they were part of something bigger, that in their small acts of healing, they were honoring a tradition that went back to the dawn of time. Air's legacy was woven into the fabric of Norse life, a quiet thread of compassion that ran through even the darkest of days. She was not the most famous of the gods, but to those who knew her, she was everything. She was the promise of a new day after a long night, the gentle touch that could pull someone back from the brink. Air's story was a reminder that in a world where so much was uncertain, there was always hope. There was always the chance to heal, to grow, to find peace. In every herb that grew in the wild, and every healer who placed their hands upon the sick, Air's spirit lived on. She was the quiet voice that whispered in the darkness, urging those who were suffering to hold on, to believe in the power of healing. She was the light that flickered in the distance, showing the way to those who were lost. And though the battles of gods and men raged on, Air's gentle presence remained, a constant, comforting reminder that even in the harshest of worlds, there was always room for kindness. In the shadow of the great gods of Asgard, there stood a figure often unnoticed, yet unbreakable. Vidar, the son of Odin, was not one to boast or seek the spotlight. He was the quiet presence in a realm filled with noise and chaos, a steady hand in a world that often trembled. Known as the Silent Avenger, Vidar embodied a strength that spoke not through words, but through unwavering resolve. His story is not just of vengeance but of resilience, the kind that endures when all else crumbles. Vidar's destiny was written in the ancient runes long before his birth, a prophecy that whispered of the end times, of Ragnarok. In those dark, foreboding lines, it was foretold that the world would be swallowed by fire and fury, and the gods would fall. Odin, the All-Father, would meet his doom at the jaws of the monstrous wolf, Fenrir. It was Vidar who would step forward then, not with a roar or a battle cry, but with a silent promise. He would avenge his father's death, his quiet determination burning brighter than any warrior's sword. Throughout his life, Vidar prepared for that moment, his every action fueled by the knowledge of what was to come. While others feasted and fought, Vidar gathered his strength in solitude. He was often seen tending to his mighty shoe, crafted from the scraps of leather left behind by men and gods alike. A simple piece of footwear, but its significance was profound. It was with this shoe that Vidar would step into the mouth of Fenrir, holding it open with a force that no beast could overcome. It was not just a shoe, it was a symbol of his quiet, unyielding spirit. Vidar's silence was his shield. He did not need to shout his intentions or prove his worth. His power lay in his patience, in the way he watched and waited, knowing that his time would come. While the other gods wielded their weapons with flourish, Vidar's weapon was his resolve, forged in the fires of his destiny. He was not a god who sought glory, his purpose was deeper, rooted in the love for his father and the need to set things right. In a world where so much was loud and violent, Vidar was a breath of calm, a steady force that nothing could sway. The stories of Vidar often paint him as a solitary figure, but there is a quiet beauty in his solitude. He represents the strength that comes from within, the kind that doesn't need validation from others. Vidar is the reminder that sometimes the greatest power lies in stillness and the ability to stand firm when everything else is falling apart. His silence was not an absence of voice, but a profound statement of his character. In every step he took, and every quiet breath, Vidar carried the weight of his destiny with grace and dignity. When Ragnarok finally arrived, the sky tore open, and the earth shuddered under the weight of the gods' final battle. The sun and moon were devoured, the seas roared, and the stars fell from the heavens. In the midst of this chaos, Odin faced Fenrir, the monstrous wolf whose very existence threatened the fabric of the world. The battle was fierce, but Odin, despite his wisdom and power, fell to the beast's mighty jaws. It was a moment of despair that rippled through the hearts of gods and men alike. But Vidar did not falter. In that pivotal moment, he stepped forward, his silent promise echoing louder than any battle cry. With his mighty shoe, Vidar pressed down on Fenrir's jaw, holding it open with an unyielding force. His strength was not just in his muscles, but in the years of quiet preparation, the countless moments spent readying himself for this very act. As he tore the beast apart, it was not just an act of vengeance, but a fulfillment of his destiny, a testament to his enduring spirit. Vidar's triumph over Fenrir was not just a victory for the gods, but a symbol of resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. He had stood alone against the greatest threat the world had ever known and emerged victorious. It was not the roar of battle that defined him, but the quiet, unshakable will that had guided him all his life. In that moment, Vidar proved that even in the darkest times, there is strength to be found in the silent resolve to keep going, to fight for what is right, even when the world is falling apart. Vidar's role did not end with his act of vengeance. In the new world that rose from the ashes of Ragnarok, Vidar was a pillar of stability. He stood as a reminder of what had been lost and what had been fought for. The gods who survived looked to him, not as a leader of grand speeches, but as a symbol of the quiet perseverance that had brought them through the end of days. Vidar's presence was a comfort, a reminder that even when everything seems destined to end, there is always hope, always a way forward. In the stories passed down through generations, Vidar's name is often whispered with reverence. He is the silent protector, the avenger who needs no fanfare, the god who embodies the strength that lies in all who face their struggles with quiet courage. Vidar's tale is not just about vengeance, it is about standing firm when the world tries to push you down, about honoring your commitments, no matter the cost. His legacy is a beacon for those who walk a lonely path, showing that there is power in perseverance, that sometimes the greatest battles are won not with might, but with the quiet strength of an unwavering heart. In every gust of wind that rustles through the quiet forests, and the soft footfalls that echo through the halls of Asgard, Vidar's spirit endures. He is the god who never needed to shout, whose strength was always there, solid and unbreakable. His story is a part of the new world, a lesson in the power of silence and the unspoken promises that bind us all. Vidar, the silent avenger, stands as a testament to the quiet strength that lies within us all, waiting to rise when the world needs it most. When the icy breath of winter swept through the north, and the land turned into a frozen expanse of snow and silence, it was Ullr who reigned. Ullr, the god of winter, archery, and survival, moved through the biting cold as if it were a familiar friend, his skis gliding effortlessly over the ice and snow. His bow, always by his side, was an extension of his wool, a tool not just for hunting, but for thriving in the harshest of climates. Ullr was not just a god, he was a beacon of resilience, a figure who thrived where others would falter. He was the spirit of every hunter braving the freezing winds, every skier carving paths through untouched snow, every soul who found joy in the quiet, white wilderness. Ullr's presence was felt in the crunch of snow underfoot, in the sharp, exhilarating chill that greeted the dawn of a winter's day. He was the guardian of those who ventured out into the cold, their breath fogging in the air, their hearts beating with the thrill of the hunt. Ullr was not a god of grand feasts or roaring battles. His domain was the silent expanse of the winter forest, the quiet concentration of the archer, the serene solitude of the skier moving like a shadow over frozen lakes. He was the embodiment of skill and adaptability, of finding beauty and strength in the cold, harsh edges of the world. In the days when the Norse held Ullr in high regard, his name was invoked in times of need, when survival depended on a well-placed arrow or the swift escape across snow-covered ground. Hunters prayed to Ullr for steady hands and sharp eyes, knowing that their lives and the lives of their families often hung on the outcome of a single shot. Skiers, too, whispered his name as they sped down the slopes, trusting in Ullr to guide their path, to keep them safe as they embraced the freedom of the cold, open spaces. Ullr was not just a god to them, he was a companion on every hunt, a protector in every storm, a quiet presence that gave them the courage to face the unforgiving winter. Yet, as time passed, Ullr's prominence began to fade. The world changed, the seasons shifted, and Ullr, once celebrated, became a figure more often whispered of than worshipped. But the spirit of Ullr never truly disappeared. His essence lingered in the traditions that carried on, in the sports of skiing and archery that still hold the echoes of his influence. The hunters who set out at dawn, the skiers who soar down mountainsides, they carry Ullr's legacy within them, whether they know his name or not. He is there in the crisp air that fills their lungs, in the quiet focus that sharpens their senses, and the silent joy of moving through a world that others find inhospitable. The myths of Ullr are few, but each one tells of his unmatched skills and his ability to adapt to any challenge. He was known to be so light on his skis that he could glide over the thinnest of ice without breaking it, a feat that left others in awe. His archery skills were legendary, his arrows never missing their mark, whether hunting game or defending against foes. In a world where survival often meant the difference between life and death, Ullr's prowess was not just admirable, it was essential. He was the silent assurance that, no matter how fierce the winter, there was always a way through. One tale speaks of Ullr outsmarting a giant who had been terrorizing a village. The giant, with its immense strength and fury, seemed unstoppable, but Ullr did not confront it with force. Instead, he used his wits, luring the giant onto a frozen lake and then skating circles around it, drawing it further and further out onto the fragile ice. When the giant, enraged and exhausted, finally lashed out, the ice shattered beneath its weight, sending it plunging into the freezing waters below. Uller, light as ever, skimmed back to safety, leaving the giant to its icy fate. It was a victory not of brute strength, but of cleverness, agility, and a deep understanding of the world around him. Uller's adaptability was not limited to physical feats. He was also a god of strategy, a thinker who knew that sometimes the best way to win was to change the rules of the game. He was the embodiment of resilience, not just in the face of winter's chill, but in life's many challenges. Uller taught that survival was not just about enduring, it was about thriving, finding joy and purpose even in the coldest, most difficult moments. His lessons were woven into the very fabric of Norse life, teaching them to be resourceful, to value skill and cunning, and to respect the quiet power of the winter world. Even as Uller's name became less spoken, his influence endured. The Norse people, whose lives were so deeply tied to the rhythms of nature, never truly forgot the god who had guided them through countless winters. Uller was there in every snowflake that fell, in every gust of wind that swept across the fjords, and every quiet moment when a hunter stood, poised and ready, waiting for the perfect shot. He was the unspoken prayer, the silent hope that warmed even the coldest nights. Uller's spirit was, and still is, a reminder that there is strength in silence, in the careful aim of an arrow, and the smooth glide of skis over snow. He is the god of those who find peace in the cold, who see beauty in the frost, who know that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in shouting one's name, but in simply enduring and thriving against all odds. In every frost-covered forest, in every crisp winter morning, Uller's presence can still be felt. He is the breath of cold air that fills your lungs, the crunch of snow beneath your feet, the steady beat of your heart as you face the world, unafraid. Uller's legacy is one of quiet strength, of finding joy in the struggle, of knowing that even in the harshest of winters, there is warmth to be found in the spirit of survival. His stories, though few, are reminders that resilience is not always loud or grand. Sometimes, it is the quiet determination to keep moving forward, one step at a time, through the snow and the cold, towards the promise of spring. Every sunrise brings a promise, every moonrise a gentle lullaby. Yet, beneath these familiar sights, a fierce cosmic chase unfolds. The sun and moon are not just celestial objects, they are driven by Sol and Mani, the celestial twins who command the chariots of light and darkness. Sol, with her golden hair flowing behind her, races across the sky, dragging the sun's chariot. Her brother Mani, pale and serene, follows in his moonlit chariot, moving silently through the night. Their journey is not a peaceful one, it is a relentless flight from the monstrous wolves Skoll and Hati, who are forever in pursuit, hungry for their celestial prey. Each morning, as Sol starts her ride across the sky, she is pursued by Skoll, a fearsome wolf with eyes as dark as the void. Skoll's howl echoes through the heavens as he chases her, desperate to catch the sun and bring eternal darkness to the world. Every sunset is not just the end of the day but a moment of reprieve for Sol, as she escapes the wolf's snapping jaws, only to rise again, fighting against the night. The light of her chariot is a beacon of hope, a symbol of perseverance and resilience. In the dark of night, Mani's struggle is no less intense. Hati, a wolf as relentless as Skoll, hunts him with equal ferocity. The moon's journey through the sky is a dance of evasion, a constant bid to outpace the shadowy predator. Every moonrise is a reminder of the courage it takes to face the darkness, to continue moving forward despite the fearsome creature that lurks just behind. Mani's silvery light offers comfort in the darkest hours, a promise that the night will not last forever, and that dawn will come again. Sol and Mani's struggle is not just a battle of light against dark, but a reflection of the balance that governs the cosmos. Their eternal chase is a dance that defines the passage of time. As the sun rises and sets, and the moon waxes and wanes, they weave the fabric of day and night, each cycle bringing with it the promise of renewal and the assurance that darkness is always followed by light. Their story is a testament to the eternal rhythm of life, a reminder that no matter how relentless the chase, the sun will rise again, and the moon will return. In Norse cosmology, Sol and Mani are more than just celestial bodies, they are symbols of the natural order, embodiments of the cycles that shape existence. Their roles are central to the understanding of time and change, as their movements mark the passage of days, months, and seasons. The balance they maintain, though fraught with danger, is crucial for the world's harmony. The celestial twins, with their eternal flight and unyielding determination, illustrate the fundamental truths of existence, that light and dark are intertwined, and that the struggle between them shapes the very world in which we live. Their chase across the sky is a powerful reminder of the forces that drive the universe, forces that are both beautiful and terrifying. The relentless pursuit by Skoll and Hati serves as a metaphor for the struggles and challenges that all beings face. It is a story of endurance, of the will to keep moving forward despite the obstacles, of finding strength in the midst of fear and uncertainty. Sol and Mani, through their celestial dance, offer a glimpse into the profound rhythms that govern the cosmos, a reminder that even in the face of relentless pursuit, the sun will rise, the moon will shine, and the cycles of time will continue, unbroken and eternal. In the shadowy depths of Norse mythology, where the veil between life and death grows thin, resides Hel, the enigmatic ruler of the underworld. Her realm is not one of flames or torment, but a place of quiet waiting, where the souls of the dead find their final rest. Hel's domain is as mysterious as it is vital, a crucial part of the cosmic balance that governs life and death. Hel is a figure of contrasts, embodying the cold, unyielding reality of death while also holding a significant role in the cosmic order. Her appearance is as haunting as her role. One half of her face is strikingly beautiful, while the other is a ghastly visage of decay. This duality reflects the nature of her realm, a place that is neither heaven nor hell, but something in between, where souls find their place based on their lives and deeds. Her kingdom, often called Helheim, is a realm of stillness and solitude. It is a land where the dead go not to suffer, but to exist in quiet waiting. It is a place where the echoes of past lives linger, where the memories of those who have passed on are kept safe. Hel's role is not to punish or reward, but to ensure that the balance between life and death remains intact. In her realm, there is a sense of peace, a recognition that death is a natural part of existence, and that every soul has its place in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. The Norse people had a complex relationship with death, and Hel's role was central to their understanding of this transition. Death was not seen as an end, but as a passage to another state of being. Hel's realm represented the final resting place for many, a destination where the dead could find solace and rest. Her role was not one of cruelty but of duty, ensuring that every soul, regardless of its earthly deeds, had a place where it could be remembered and honored. Yet, despite her crucial role, Hel has often been misunderstood. Her appearance, with its unsettling combination of beauty and decay, has led some to view her as a figure of terror, a ruler of a hellish underworld. In reality, she is far from the fiery demons of later myths. Hel's realm is not a place of punishment but of peace, a place where the dead are given the rest they deserve. Her role is essential to the balance of life and death, ensuring that every soul finds its proper place and that the cycle of life continues undisturbed. The myths surrounding Hel often focus on her interactions with the living and the dead. One of the most famous stories tells of the hero Balder, whose death was a significant event in Norse mythology. Balder's soul was sent to Helheim, and his grieving family and gods attempted to retrieve him from Hel's realm. Despite their efforts, Hel refused to release Balder, stating that if all things in the world would weep for him, she would let him go. This myth highlights Hel's role not as a figure of doom but as a keeper of the natural order, bound by the rules of the cosmos and the laws of fate. In another myth, the god Hermod ventures into Helheim to plead for the release of his brother Balder. His journey through Hel's realm is not marked by horror but by the solemnity of the place and the unyielding nature of its ruler. Hel's response to Hermod's plea is a reminder of her role as the keeper of the dead, not one to be swayed by emotion but to uphold the balance of life and death. Hel's domain is a reflection of the Norse understanding of death as a natural part of existence. It is a place where the dead find their rest, where the echoes of their lives are preserved in the quiet of the underworld. Her role is not one of punishment or torment, but of ensuring that every soul finds its place, maintaining the balance between the living and the dead. In the end, hell represents a crucial aspect of the Norse cosmological cycle. Her realm is a place of rest, a final destination where the souls of the dead can find peace. Her role is vital to the balance of life and death, ensuring that every soul is given its due place in the grand tapestry of existence. Hell's story is a reminder that death, while a transition, is not to be feared but understood as a natural and essential part of the cosmic order. In the heart of Norse mythology, where gods and giants clash and destinies are sealed, there lies a figure often overlooked, Njord, the god of the sea and prosperity. His name might not ring as loudly as Thor's thunder or Odin's wisdom, but his influence was deeply felt by those who depended on the ocean for their livelihood and survival. Njord's presence was a silent promise of abundance and safe passage across the waves, a figure who quietly watched over the lives of seafarers and those who sought wealth from the sea. Njord's domain stretched across the vast, unpredictable sea and the abundance it could bring. He was revered by sailors and fishermen who looked to him for favorable winds and bountiful catches. To these people, Njord was more than a god. He was a vital force that could turn the tides of their fortunes. His blessings were seen in the richness of the catch and the safety of their voyages. When the sea calmed and the nets were full, it was Njord's favor they believed they had received. His power over the sea was a source of prosperity for those who lived by its rhythms and depended on its bounty. Yet, Njord's life was not without turmoil. His marriage to the giantess Skadi, a fierce and independent figure from the icy mountains, was a union fraught with challenges. Skadi had chosen Njord as her husband in a bid to avenge her father's death, a choice made in the cold, harsh light of vengeance rather than love. Their marriage was a symbol of the clash between the harsh, unyielding winter and the generous, life-giving sea. Skadi, with her fierce spirit and disdain for the sea, was far removed from the world Njord cherished. Their marriage was marked by a series of trials, reflecting the tension between their worlds. Skadi, who preferred the snowy peaks of her homeland, found herself in the midst of Njord's oceanic realm. Their life together was a constant struggle to reconcile their differences. Skadi wanted the cold and quiet of her mountain home, while Njord's heart belonged to the ever-changing sea. This discord was not just a personal struggle but a larger reflection of the balance between contrasting forces, winter and summer, land and sea. The tales of their union are a poignant reminder of the complexities of life and relationships. It highlights how even the gods are not immune to the trials and tribulations of love and coexistence. Their story is filled with moments of struggle, but also with fleeting glimpses of understanding and compromise. It is a reminder that even the gods have to navigate the rough waters of personal conflict and find a way to balance their desires and duties. Despite the troubles in his personal life, Njord's influence was profound. He was a god who could bless or curse, depending on how he was treated by those who sought his favor. There are stories of how his blessings brought prosperity to entire communities, filling their nets and ensuring their safety. But there are also tales of his wrath when disrespected, storms that could turn peaceful waters into treacherous seas, and curses that could lead to barren catches. One lesser-known tale speaks of a village that, in their desperation for wealth, neglected the rituals and offerings to Njord. In their greed, they ignored the god who had once been their protector. Their once abundant waters turned barren, and their ships were caught in endless storms. It was only when they humbled themselves, offering the due respect and sacrifices, that Njord's favor returned, bringing prosperity back to their shores. This story underscores the delicate balance of respect and reciprocity between gods and mortals. Njord's story is a testament to the complexities of divine influence and human endeavor. His role was not just to provide, but to demand respect and understanding. His blessings were not guaranteed, but earned through acknowledgement of his power and the balance of nature he upheld. His presence was a silent yet powerful force, shaping the lives of those who relied on the sea and its mysteries. Through his blessings and curses, Njord embodied the dual nature of the sea, a source of life and fortune, yet also a reminder of the power and unpredictability that lay beneath its surface. In the shadowed corners of Norse mythology, where tales of gods and their fates intertwine, the story of HR stands out with a chilling sense of tragedy. HR, the blind god, is marked by misfortune, and his tale is a haunting reminder of how darkness can obscure even the brightest of destinies. His story is not just a tale of blindness, but a profound exploration of manipulation, fate, and the quest for redemption. HR's name is forever tied to one of the most sorrowful events in the Norse pantheon, the death of Balder, the beloved god. Balder, who shone with a light so pure that he was cherished by all the gods, met a tragic end through the hands of his own brother, HR. The story goes that HR, robbed of sight and thus unable to perceive the beauty and goodness of Balder, was manipulated by Loki, the trickster god. Loki, knowing HR's vulnerability, tricked him into throwing a mistletoe dart at Balder. Mistletoe, which was the only thing that could harm Balder, struck him and caused his death. HR's actions, though unintentional, brought about one of the darkest moments in Norse mythology. The tragedy of HR is not merely in the act of killing his brother, but in the overwhelming sense of manipulation and the cruel twist of fate that led to it. Blindness, in this context, is more than a physical condition. It symbolizes a deeper, more profound lack of understanding and control. HR's blindness is a metaphor for how fate can blind individuals to their own actions and the consequences they bring. His story is a painful reflection on how sometimes people can be unwittingly used as instruments of misfortune, their innocence twisted by external forces beyond their comprehension. In the Norse myths, HR's legacy is one of deep sorrow and reflection. He is seen as a tragic figure whose actions, though not entirely his fault, left an indelible mark on the world of gods. His story paints a picture of a god who, despite his own suffering and lack of sight, becomes a vessel for one of the most significant tragedies in the pantheon. The gods, who had once adored Balder, now faced the fallout of his death, a series of events that would lead to the inevitable destruction of the world in Ragnarok. But there is a sense of redemption in HR's story, a sliver of light in his otherwise dark narrative. In some versions of the myths, HR is depicted as being held in the afterlife, waiting for the end times, when he will be resurrected and able to make amends for his actions. This notion of redemption is a powerful element in his story, offering a glimmer of hope even in the midst of despair. HR's eventual return is seen as a way for the world to be healed and for balance to be restored. It is a profound reminder that even those who have committed great wrongs can find a path to forgiveness and redemption, reflecting the deeply human desire for second chances and healing. HR's tale is a poignant exploration of how tragedy can arise from a combination of fate, manipulation, and inherent flaws. His story resonates with a heart-wrenching sense of inevitability and a longing for redemption. It reminds us that the gods themselves are not immune to the whims of fate and the dark shadows that can fall upon even the most revered beings. Through HR's story, we are confronted with the harsh realities of fate, the pain of unintended consequences, and the possibility of redemption amidst sorrow. In the shadow of tragedy, where hope seems as distant as a star, Herm stands as a beacon of bravery and determination. His story begins at a moment of despair for the gods, when the light of Balder, the beloved god, was extinguished. The loss was so profound that it plunged the entire pantheon into a state of mourning, leaving them with a desperate plea for redemption. Amidst this sea of grief, one figure emerged as a symbol of hope and courage, Hermr, the brave messenger. Hermr's tale is one of sheer daring and unwavering resolve. When the gods learned that the only chance to bring Balder back from the clutches of Hel, the land of the dead, lay in convincing Hel herself, they needed a hero. Hermr stepped forward, driven by a heart full of love for his fallen brother and a fierce determination to restore the light that had been lost. His mission was daunting: travel to Hel, face the Queen of the Dead, and plead for Balder's return. It was a journey fraught with danger and uncertainty, yet Hermr accepted it without hesitation. Riding his swift horse, which was said to gallop across the 9 worlds in a single night, Hermr ventured into the shadowy realm of Hel. The darkness of Hel was a stark contrast to the bright heavens of Asgard, and the journey itself was a testament to Hermr's courage. He faced not only the physical challenges of the journey but also the emotional weight of his task. Every step he took was a step deeper into the unknown, driven by hope and an unyielding sense of duty. Upon reaching Hel, Herm was greeted by its queen, Hel, a figure of both mystery and power. His plea to her was heartfelt and filled with the raw emotion of the gods' mourning. He asked for Baldur's return, not just for the gods, but for the world that had been dimmed by his absence. Hel, moved by the sincerity of Herm's plea, agreed to consider it. But there was a condition: if every living being, from gods to mortals, wept for Baldur, he would be allowed to return. This challenge was both simple and impossibly difficult, highlighting the depth of Herm's quest. Herm's role in this story is not just that of a messenger but as a symbol of hope and courage. His willingness to venture into the darkest of realms, face a goddess who presided over death, and plead for the return of a lost light embodies the spirit of heroism. His actions serve as a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and hope can drive one to accomplish the seemingly impossible. Beyond this remarkable feat, Herm's story includes other lesser-known achievements that paint a fuller picture of his bravery. In various tales, he is shown as a steadfast warrior, involved in battles and heroic deeds that underscore his role as a key figure among the gods. Each story adds layers to his character, revealing a god who not only faced the darkness but fought to bring light back into the world. Herm's legacy is one of inspiration and resilience. His journey to Hel is a powerful reminder of the lengths to which one will go for those they love and the courage required to face even the most daunting challenges. His story resonates deeply, touching hearts with its portrayal of bravery in the face of despair and the unyielding hope that drives one to confront the darkest of trials. In the ancient world of Norse mythology, where gods and goddesses wielded immense power over the natural world, Jeftin stands out as a remarkable figure of creativity and transformation. Known as the Plow Goddess, her story weaves together the threads of fertility, agriculture, and land shaping in a way that is both profound and touching. Jeftin's power was not merely about overseeing the earth, but actively shaping it. Her role as the goddess of plowing was deeply intertwined with the cycles of nature and the fertility of the land. In Norse belief, land was not just a resource but a living entity that could be nurtured or ravaged. Jeftin's influence extended into these fundamental aspects of life, connecting her to the very heart of existence. One of the most vivid and captivating myths about Jeftin involves her monumental feat of creating Zealand, the large Danish island. The tale goes that Jeftin, in a display of divine strength and skill, plowed a vast area of land from Sweden, dragging it across the sea to create the island. Her plowing was so powerful that it tore away a large chunk of the earth, leaving behind a massive scar in Sweden that still marks the land today. This story highlights Jeftin's connection to the earth, portraying her as a goddess who could shape the world with her will. The imagery of Jeftin plowing the earth is both awe-inspiring and deeply symbolic. In ancient Norse culture, plowing was not just a physical act, but a sacred ritual that ensured the fertility of the land. The Plow Goddess embodied the promise of new growth and prosperity, making her central to agricultural success and the well-being of communities. Her plowing was more than just a practical task, it was a divine act that imbued the earth with life-giving energy. The significance of Jeftin's role in agriculture cannot be understated. Her association with plowing symbolizes the nurturing of the earth, ensuring that it could produce abundant crops and sustain the people who depended on it. The act of plowing, in Norse tradition, was a vital part of ensuring that the land remained fertile and capable of supporting life. Jeftin's divine touch was believed to bless the fields, turning barren ground into lush, productive farmland. Jeftin's story and her association with plowing reveal a deep reverence for the natural world and the cycles of life. Her role as the Plow Goddess underscores the importance of harmony between humans and the earth. Through her myth, we see a reflection of the profound connection between deities and the natural forces they represent. Jeftin's ability to shape the land and ensure its fertility speaks to a broader understanding of how divine influence was seen as integral to the health and prosperity of the world. Her influence extended beyond mere agriculture, it touched upon the very essence of life and survival. In the ancient Norse view, deities like Jeftin were not just distant figures of worship but active participants in the daily struggles and triumphs of human life. Their actions directly impacted the land, the harvests, and the well-being of the people they watched over. Jeftin's legacy is one of powerful transformation and nurturing care. Her myth encapsulates the essence of divine intervention in the natural world, showing how gods and goddesses were believed to actively shape and sustain the world. Through her, we see the deep interconnection between the divine and the earthly, a connection that underscores the importance of respecting and honoring the natural forces that sustain life. In the tapestry of Norse mythology, where gods and goddesses embody every facet of life, Nas and Gersemi emerge as radiant symbols of beauty, desire, and wealth. These daughters of Freya, the goddess of love and fertility, shine with a unique brilliance that captivates the imagination and stirs the heart. Nas and Gersemi were not merely children of a powerful deity, they were living embodiments of Freya's core attributes. Freya, known for her unmatched beauty and her control over love and fertility, passed these traits onto her daughters. Their names, Nas meaning jewel and Gersemi meaning treasure, are reflections of the roles they played in Norse mythology. They were personifications of desire and wealth, qualities that were both revered and sought after in the ancient world. The stories of Nas and Gersemi are imbued with a sense of enchantment and longing. In one of the most touching myths, it is said that their beauty was so great that it rivaled the splendor of the gods themselves. This divine beauty was not just physical but symbolic of the deeper, more profound aspects of desire and value that these goddesses represented. Nas and Gersemi were not only beautiful but also the embodiment of the preciousness that their mother, Freya, cherished. Their roles in Norse tradition highlight the ancient people's understanding of wealth and desire as essential, yet elusive, elements of life. Wealth was not merely material riches, but was intertwined with beauty and desire, which were seen as divine gifts. Nas and Gersemi, through their very existence, illustrated how these qualities were cherished and desired by the gods themselves. Their stories emphasize that beauty and wealth were not just superficial but deeply connected to the divine and the spiritual. The tales of Nas and Gersemi also reflect the broader Norse perspective on how these qualities influence and shape human experience. In ancient Norse culture, the pursuit of beauty and wealth was not merely a materialistic endeavor but a reflection of deeper spiritual and emotional yearnings. By personifying these concepts through their daughters, Freya imparted a sense of sacredness to the pursuit of such attributes. It became clear that these qualities, while highly valued, were also subject to the whims of fate and the gods. Nas and Gersemi's place in Norse mythology also reveals how the divine and the mundane intersected in ancient beliefs. They were not distant, aloof figures but part of the everyday lives and desires of those who worshipped them. Their stories were a way for people to understand and relate to the divine aspects of beauty and wealth, making these concepts more tangible and accessible. In their symbolic roles, Nas and Gersemi highlight a poignant truth about human nature and the divine. They remind us that desire and wealth, while powerful and captivating, are also fleeting and often beyond our control. The stories of these goddesses touch on the eternal human struggle to find meaning and satisfaction in the pursuit of beauty and prosperity. Their legacy in Norse mythology is a testament to the enduring allure of these qualities and their impact on human life. Nas and Gersemi, through their divine representation of beauty and wealth, continue to resonate with the timeless human experience of longing and aspiration. They embody the idea that even in the face of desire and the pursuit of material wealth, there is a deeper, more spiritual journey that connects us all. In the shadowy depths of Norse mythology, where wisdom and fate intertwine, Mimir stands as a figure of haunting and profound significance. Known as the Keeper of Wisdom, Mimir's story is both a tale of deep knowledge and a testament to the sacrifices made in the quest for understanding. Mimir's well, nestled beneath one of the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, was more than just a source of water, it was a sacred reservoir of ancient knowledge. Odin, the Allfather and chief of the gods, sought out this well in a desperate quest for wisdom. Mimir, the guardian of this well, was known for his profound and unfathomable knowledge. His well was said to contain the secrets of the cosmos, truths that even the gods themselves sought to understand. To gain access to this well, Odin had to offer one of his own eyes, a symbolic act reflecting the depth of his commitment to acquiring wisdom. The tale of Mimir takes a darker turn with his decapitation. After a brutal betrayal by the Vanir gods during the Aesir-Vanir War, Mimir's head was severed, yet his knowledge did not die with him. Odin preserved Mimir's head through powerful magic and consulted it regularly. This decapitated head, still able to impart wisdom and guidance, became a symbol of the sacrifices required to obtain and retain knowledge. The head of Mimir, though severed from his body, continued to offer counsel and insight, demonstrating that wisdom transcends physical form. The symbolism of Mimir's decapitated head is deeply evocative. It represents the notion that true understanding often comes at a steep price. Odin's willingness to sacrifice his eye and later preserve Mimir's head underscores the lengths to which one must go to grasp profound truths. The head, continually whispering secrets of the universe, embodies the idea that wisdom, once attained, holds a lasting influence that continues beyond the mortal coil. Mimir's wisdom significantly shaped the fates of the gods and the world itself. His knowledge, shared through Odin's consultations, played a crucial role in guiding the decisions of the gods, influencing their actions and shaping their destiny. The insights he provided were not merely academic, but had real and tangible impacts on the gods' decisions and the course of events in the mythological narrative. Mimir's guidance helped steer the gods through critical moments, illustrating the immense value of wisdom in navigating the complexities of fate and existence. The story of Mimir, with its blend of sacrifice, wisdom, and symbolic resonance, speaks to the deep human desire for understanding and the often harsh reality of obtaining it. It reminds us that wisdom is not a gift freely given but a treasure earned through sacrifice and perseverance. Mimir's legacy, preserved through his decapitated head, is a poignant reminder of the enduring nature of true knowledge and the price that must sometimes be paid to attain it. In the heart of Norse mythology, where the gods are often fierce and battle-worn, there exists a lesser-known but profoundly significant figure, Snotra, the goddess of wisdom and courtesy. Though her presence may not command the same grandeur as Thor or Odin, Snotra's essence touches upon the very core of human decency and the elegance of social grace. Imagine a time when the world was raw and untamed, where survival depended on strength and cunning. Amid this chaotic existence, Snotra emerged not with thunder or fury, but with the gentle assurance of kindness and intelligence. Her very name evokes a sense of refined politeness and wisdom, a beacon of light in the rough seas of Norse life. Snotra embodied the virtues of courtesy and intelligence, qualities that were held in high esteem in Norse culture. While the gods often engaged in fierce battles or grand adventures, Snotra represented a different kind of power, the power of graceful interaction and thoughtful conversation. In a world where physical prowess was celebrated, Snotra's role as the goddess of politeness and wisdom highlighted the importance of social harmony and intellectual depth. Her influence underscored the value of behaving with respect and understanding, even amidst the harsh realities of life. In Norse society, where honor and reputation were crucial, Snotra's teachings offered a guiding light. Social graces were not just about manners, they were about ensuring the smooth functioning of society. To be courteous was to show respect for others, to honor agreements, and to foster good relationships. Snotra's influence encouraged people to engage with each other in a manner that upheld dignity and respect. Her presence was a reminder that wisdom is not only about knowledge, but also about how one uses that knowledge to interact with others. Stories of Snotra reveal her as a deity who valued not just intelligence, but the ability to communicate and act with grace. Although specific myths about Snotra may be sparse, her teachings were likely woven into the fabric of everyday life and rituals. People turned to her for guidance on how to conduct themselves with integrity and intelligence. Rituals associated with Snotra may have involved offerings or prayers that sought her blessing for harmonious relationships and successful negotiations. Her name was invoked in hopes of gaining not only wisdom but also the ability to navigate social complexities with finesse. Snotra's significance in Norse culture is a testament to the belief that wisdom encompasses more than just knowledge. It includes the ability to apply that knowledge with kindness and respect. Her role as a goddess of courtesy and intelligence provided a counterbalance to the more chaotic elements of the mythological world. She was a reminder that even in the most tumultuous times, the values of respect and thoughtful interaction were paramount. Through Snotra, we understand that the qualities of politeness and intelligence are not just secondary virtues but essential aspects of a well-lived life. Her teachings remind us that every interaction carries the potential to uplift or harm, and that true wisdom is reflected in how we treat others. In a world where gods and mortals alike face countless trials, Snotra's legacy endures as a poignant reminder of the power of grace and the importance of respectful conduct. In the heart of Norse mythology, amidst gods of thunder and wisdom, there exists a figure shrouded in mystery and shadows, Lur. His story is woven into the very fabric of creation, yet he remains an enigmatic figure whose true essence evokes awe and wonder. Lur, along with Odin and Honor, played a crucial role in the creation of humanity. Their story begins in the ancient cosmos, where chaos reigned before the gods shaped the world. In this primordial time, the earth was barren and lifeless. It was Lur who, with his companions, breathed life into the first humans. This act was not just about creating physical beings, it was about infusing them with warmth, vitality, and spirit. Imagine the vast, cold expanse of the world before life. The sky was dark, and the earth lay still and empty. Then, Lur, with his companions, stepped forward, their presence a beacon of warmth and life. They breathed life into the first humans, not merely as physical entities, but as beings imbued with purpose and passion. This moment was transformative, turning lifeless forms into creatures capable of feeling joy, sorrow, and love. Lur's contribution to humanity was not limited to merely creating life. He was also associated with the gifts of warmth and vitality. In a world where the elements were harsh and unforgiving, his role was to bring the essential qualities of heat and life that allowed humans to flourish. His presence was a reminder that even in the coldest, most desolate times, there is always a spark of warmth and life that sustains and nurtures. The myths surrounding Lur paint him as a god whose importance cannot be understated. Though he may not have the same prominence as Odin or Thor, his role in shaping humanity's existence and imbuing them with essential qualities speaks volumes. His actions were foundational, yet his legacy is often overshadowed by more famous deities. This mystery adds to his allure, as his contributions were crucial to the survival and development of humanity but remain shrouded in the mist of time. Lur's significance is also reflected in the balance he brought to the world. Where Odin represented wisdom and Honor represented contemplation, Lur provided the vital energy and warmth necessary for life. This balance was crucial in ensuring that humanity could not only exist but thrive. His role was not just as a creator but as a sustaining force, ensuring that life continued to grow and evolve. As we ponder Lur's place in the Norse pantheon, his story reminds us of the unseen forces that shape our world. He embodies the quiet yet essential elements of warmth and life, elements that are often taken for granted but are vital for our existence. His enigmatic nature and the mysteries surrounding his contributions highlight the complex interplay of forces that sustain life. In Norse mythology, where gods and heroes are often larger-than-life figures, Lur's story stands out as a poignant reminder of the quiet strength that sustains us. His legacy, though less celebrated, is a testament to the importance of every contribution, no matter how seemingly small or overshadowed. In the grand tapestry of creation, Lur's role was crucial, and his presence, though mysterious, continues to inspire awe and reverence. In the echoes of ancient stories and the shadows of forgotten myths, there lies a treasure trove of deities whose names have faded from the forefront of our minds. These lesser-known gods and goddesses, once worshipped with reverence and devotion, now linger in the background, their tales hushed but still alive in the whispers of time. Reflect on the power of these forgotten deities. They were once vibrant forces in the tapestry of ancient belief, each with a unique role and purpose. Their stories were not merely legends, but integral threads that wove together the fabric of a culture's understanding of the world. From the solemn depths of Hell's underworld to the quiet strength of Lur, these gods played crucial parts in shaping the beliefs and lives of those who revered them. Their importance was not limited to grand gestures, but extended to the everyday experiences of people who sought their favor and guidance. In a world where the dominant narratives often overshadow the quieter voices, reviving these forgotten gods serves as an act of reclaiming lost history. Remembering and honoring these deities is more than just an exercise in nostalgia. It's about acknowledging the diverse ways in which humanity has tried to make sense of its existence. Each god story holds a mirror to human struggles, hopes, and values. By bringing these figures back into the light, we honor the full spectrum of our mythological heritage and remind ourselves of the rich, multifaceted nature of human belief. The impact of this revival extends beyond mere remembrance. It's a profound gesture of respect towards the ancestors who first told these tales. When we breathe life into these old myths, we do more than recall forgotten stories, we reaffirm their relevance. These gods and goddesses symbolize aspects of existence that remain pertinent today: wisdom, justice, courage, and the eternal struggle between light and darkness. Their stories offer comfort and insight, reflecting our own experiences and aspirations. Consider how these tales continue to resonate in modern times. In our fast-paced world, where ancient traditions sometimes feel distant, the stories of these deities offer a connection to a past that can still speak to us. They remind us of the enduring power of myth to articulate the human condition. Whether through the quiet strength of Forseti or the nurturing warmth of Jefjan, these gods provide us with archetypes and symbols that can guide and inspire. Their tales are not just relics of a bygone era, but are alive with lessons and emotions that are still relevant. They teach us about resilience in the face of adversity, the importance of balance and harmony, and the enduring quest for understanding in a complex world. By exploring and celebrating these forgotten gods, we enrich our own lives with the wisdom and beauty of ancient stories. In reviving these lesser-known deities, we acknowledge the depth and diversity of human experience. We honor the rich tapestry of beliefs that have shaped our understanding of the world. Their stories, once at the heart of a culture's spiritual life, continue to offer profound insights and inspiration. As we remember and celebrate these forgotten gods, we keep their legacy alive and allow their timeless wisdom to touch our lives once more.